We've done that a few times. Hey, can we start with the serenity prayer, please? God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Good morning. My name is Kent Coleman. I'm an alcoholic. And my dry date is May 18th, 1992. I am a member of the Sink or Swim men's group in Sandusky, Ohio. I have a sponsor. He's sitting over there. He knows he is my sponsor, as he likes to say. However, I don't think he's too thrilled about it. It's an honor and a privilege to be here. I want to thank the committee. Thank you to Marnie. Marnie put some homemade cookies in the bag, in the gift bag. Now, Janelle said to me on the way here, I hope Marnie put some of them cookies in the bag. Now, I got to be honest with you. I ain't know nothing about no cookies the last time we was here because I didn't get any, right? I didn't get any, and I haven't had any this time. I'm sure they're wonderful. Thank you, Marnie. Of course, I want to thank the love of my life, Janelle, for being here, coming with me, and listening to me run my mouth again. She is the love of my life and the wind beneath my wings. Her smile is my sunshine. Love you, baby. And I'll tell you what, I want to thank the speakers who have come before. There has been, I like to use the term spiritual synchronicity in everything that I have heard this weekend. Every speaker who has been up here, there has been a rhythm and a flow of spirit here this weekend that is just absolutely. I was thinking, listening to Matthew, I'm like, this can't be this easy. I mean, they have laid the foundation for it. I mean, yesterday, and there's been a lot of things that have touched me. Tom said, our thinking, what can we change? Our thinking, our behavior, and our attitude. Okay? So like, how do I do that? Right? And then everything else, right? Gail talked about our history and talked about the spiritual significance of the group conscience, right? A loving God as he may express himself in our second and third legacy, right? So like, it's like God gave us this in this perfect order, right? Like we got these steps, right? So that we could awaken our spirits, right? So that we could start to think about, I sent my sponsees a little thing. We got a thread the other day and I said, it's nice to have periods of time when I think of somebody other than myself, right? And they all hit back with little hearts, right? All right, we got a Zoom meeting on Tuesday night, and there's a line in the book that said our very lives as ex-problem drinkers depends upon our constant thought of others and how we may help meet their needs. So Tuesday night, I had all their little faces in the squares, and I said, hey, real quick, let's have a quick show of hands of everybody today who's constantly thought of others and how they may help meet their needs, right? And I'm looking at 30 faces like this, right? So we got some work to do, right? Billy talked about, step one, right? And step one, we admitted we were powerless over alcohol. Alcohol, right? I got here by drinking. So I got here. I didn't get here no other way. Last night, Don, he made a statement about when Abby said to Bill, why don't you choose your own conception of God? And Don said it made the circle wider. And I was sitting there because I've often thought that it made it as broad as the universe. God would meet me he'll meet me where I'm at. And anybody who comes here, God will meet you where you at. And then Matthew talked about grace, right? And I love when you said, well, like people talk about, well, look at this wonderful life God has given me, right? And Matthew said, I've been thinking about that. And I've been thinking, like, that grace has always been there. I just couldn't get out the way to appropriate it, right? I believe that grace was there when I was born. It's always been there. So how do I appropriate it? How do I appropriate it, right? So at the end of step 3, it tells me that decision in step 3 was a vital and crucial step. But it could have little permanent effect, meaning it's not going to last unless, and I got these 2 words, my first sponsor made me circle them, at once, followed by a strenuous effort to face and to be rid of the things in ourselves which had been blocking us. Let's keep this simple. Okay, so I've made this decision, right? But I'm blocked. I'm blocked. Don talked about self-reliance last night, right? And how even today, right, that continues to be something that I will fall back into, sometimes even subconsciously. But I'll fall, and then once I get down the road and things start getting messed up, then I'll realize, right, who's running the show here? Right? Self-reliance had failed me. And then it said, when I get cocky with it, it get even worse because I'm even more sure that I have the answer, right? So I got some work to do here. Now I say this about inventory, and I've said this before. What I do for a living is I am a buyer. I work for a big company, and I purchase internationally raw materials from all over the world for this company. So I understand inventory. I know what inventory is. Every year, sometimes some companies do it 2 or 3 times a year, we shut down everything. Shut down, nothing comes in, nothing comes out. And we take honest stock of what we have in our buildings, right? And we go through and we identify things that are damaged, that are obsolete, that no longer have any value, but they're taking up space and they're still on the books. Okay? So the purpose of inventory is now to be rid of those things which have no value, right? So that we can now, right, bring in the things which do have value. And here's the thing about inventory. We do that where I work now. We do it once a year. But the first thing I do every single day when I go to work, and even on the weekends when I go home to get back to Ohio tomorrow, Janelle will tell you, I'll turn on that laptop and I'm going to go in and I'm going to take a look at what's been consumed. I'm going to take a look at inventory. That's the first thing I do every morning when I get to work, is I look at inventory and I see what it is that I have, what is it that I don't need, what do I have too much of, and what do I not have enough of. And I'll do that every single day. And isn't that the same way that we will be doing we'll be doing that in steps 10 and 11, won't we? We will be constant. See, so step 4 is not an acute event. What step 4 is something that I am going to practice imperfectly, of course, one day at a time for the rest of my life. So we're putting in place this design for living. And I tell my sponsees all the time, once we start getting into 10, 11, 12, drop the numbers off. Drop the numbers off. Because now it's a way of life. Okay? So now we start talking about, and what we talk about all the time is not what you're doing, because they'll call me and you know how it is. Oh, I got this happened, and I can't believe this, and right? And I never say, well, tell me what you're doing. I'm not interested in what you're doing because you just told me it don't work. What I want to know is what you're not doing. I believe in the totalness, the wholeness, the completeness, and the totality of what we have here. There are no cracks to fall through. This is a program, this is a God-given program, a book that was written by people who were not qualified to write it. We're not sober long enough to know this stuff, right? So there's no failure here. So what's happening is what we need to look at is, okay, well, what are we not doing? Right. So with inventory, it tells me that I need to look at some things and I need to put pen to paper to do it. Now, I don't know about anybody else. I came to Alcoholics Anonymous. I had not been here before. I did not know anybody that had been here before. I've been in a lot of trouble in my life. I ain't getting into all that. And I never stood in front of a judge who said, you have a problem with alcohol. Every time you come in here, it has something to do with drinking. You need help. That never happened. When I stood in front of the Honorable Judge Stacy in the Erie County Municipal Court, he said, you did it again, you're going to jail. Right? And I thank God today, right? Because people, I find out later that a lot of people who was doing what I was doing was getting sent to treatment, and all that. And I guess God in his infinite wisdom know when you're ready, right? And I wasn't. And I think had I come here, this is my first sponsor said, he said, I don't know. He said, but had you come here, you would have discounted this and you'd have died because this is the only help for you. So I wasn't allowed to see this until I was at a certain point. Don talked about desperation last night. And I'll tell you, I got here, I believe I was prayed here. I had a moment of clarity. I asked for some help. And I ended up in a treatment facility. I had no idea that treatment had anything to do. I didn't know nothing. They told me I was going to AA when I was at treatment, and I said, for what? I was so drunk when I went to treatment that I couldn't even sign the papers to be admitted into, right. Well, you're going to be going to a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous tonight. I said, for what? I didn't know anybody. I didn't know anything about anything. Right? I took the steps off the wall. I looked at them. I discarded like 5 or 6 of them immediately and came up with my version of what should work. And I put it into action. I got out of treatment. I put my little 5, 6 steps into action. And, of course, things got worse. I did not drink, but I would have. I intended to. And in a fit of anger, 2 months sober, and I was going to 3 meetings Monday through Friday, 4 and 5 on Saturday and Sunday. In a fit of anger at work, picked up a T-bar and was going to hit a supervisor in the head. I'd killed him if I'd have hit him. And that's 60 days in here and probably close to 200 meetings. And after 3 months, I end up in the parking lot of a bar in downtown Sandusky called Daly's Pub, and I want to drink. And I've been to all these meetings, and I cannot understand why this ain't happening. And I actually believe that is the moment when desperation entered my life. Because I had been with you long enough. Ralph will remember, I used to go around saying, them meetings didn't do me no good. They did me a whole lot of good. Because I knew by that time what was wrong with me. And I also knew who to go to do something about it. I knew who to go to. And I sat in that car and I had not said a prayer in Alcoholics Anonymous in all that time. Not one. Not one. And I sat in that car and I said, God, what's wrong with me? I don't want to drink. What am I doing wrong? And immediately I got a lightning bolt answer. What are you doing right? You hear it every day. Get a sponsor, get in the book, work the steps, get a home group, get active, help others. I ain't do none of that. To me, AA was a cigarette smoking, donut dunking, coffee clutch. And that's how I treated it. And I'm about to drink. I always say that honesty, open-mindedness, and willingness, these 3 essentials of recovery, and Don talked about that last night. I call them the triplets. All triplets have a mother. For me, the mother of honesty, open-mindedness, and willingness is something called desperation. And desperation gave birth to enough honesty, open-mindedness, and willingness in that car for me to turn that key and drive to Lorain, Ohio, and go looking for a man who an old timer at my home group said could help me. He said he specializes in guys like you. And his name was Bill F. And I went to see Mr. Finley. And we got into these steps. And the fourth step, like, I'm going to talk a little bit. I'm not up here to talk about the mechanics of the fourth step. Like we do workshops, and we used to do them workshops. We used to bring a chalkboard out. We used to draw them 3 lines. Remember that, Ralph? We draw them 3 lines, and we spent 3 hours talking about how to mechanically do a fourth step. Right? I'm not going to get into mechanics today. Right? I'm married to content, not format. Right? I was at a meeting one time when I was new down at the club. We had some real meetings down at the club. And we spent an entire hour arguing about whether there was 3 or 4 columns. Right? Like, there's new people in the room who need help, and we got this argument going on. Now, my book ain't got but 3, right? Who cares? Make it easier? And I think it does. Just put it right there, right? But I'm not going to get into so much into form. I want to talk about the spiritual shift that I was guided through. Again, what did Father Tom say? Our thinking, our behavior, our attitude. How do I change that? So I start to get some things in this fourth step. So we get into the resentment section, right? And it talked about, resentment being the number one offender, right? Kills more alcoholics than anything else, right? Okay, I get all that. So we got these 3 columns. Resentful at, right? The cause affects my, right? Now, I don't know about nobody else in here, but I knew all that already, right? I knew who I was mad at. I knew why I was mad at you. I know what you did to me, right? And I know how you've affected me. You've hurt my pride and my feelings, right? The judge, financial, my pocketbook, right? Ford Motor Company, again, my pocketbook, right? And so I know all that, right? So I get all that down, right? Then it takes me someplace. And again, we've had so many great talks here. I had a conversation with a man. I'm not, somebody all of you know, his picture might be out here somewhere, I don't know. But I was telling him about a situation that I had, and he asked me one question. He said, "Did you ask God for help with this?" I said, "No." And he said, "I bet he didn't either, did he?" And hung up. So we start, now we've made this decision, right? What is the third step decision in my life? A third step decision is a promise to submit to the rest of the process. How do I turn my will and my life over to the care of God? The remaining steps. And that gets me to that awakened spirit in 12. So I made a promise to submit to the rest of the process. So now I got to take some action in order for the third step to start to bear fruit in my life. For resentment, there now becomes like this combination of footwork and prayer. And it says we ask God to help us show them the same tolerance, pity, and patience we would cheerfully grant a sick friend. When a person offended, we ask ourselves, how they like ourselves were sick too. God, how can I be helpful? Thy will be done. So now, I call this the paradigm shift. This entirely different angle. Again, thinking, behavior, attitude. Now I'm shifting. I'm looking at the same thing from a different angle, a different perspective. I'm not looking at this person, I'm a victim, you did this, blah, 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 blah. Now, they, like ourselves, were sick too. I love like when I got a sponsor come to me and say, "I'm mad because they did this." And I always go, "Oh, did you ever do that to anybody?" Yeah. Okay. They like ourselves. So I'm shifting right? My perspective on how I see this. God, save me from being angry. Thy will be done. I'm starting to get some new tools to live. This is a design for living. Knowing about this doesn't make it happen. Quoting it doesn't make it happen. When my sponsees call me, did you do this? No. Okay, well, we see the result. Okay? I've been to tens of thousands of AA meetings around the world. I have yet to attend a meeting where somebody stands up and says, works if you know it. So how am I? And somebody talked about, I think it was Tom, act, don't react. So I'm going to act. I'm going to pause. And I'm going to ask God, how can I be helpful? This person just like me. I start to take responsibility for my actions. Do I always do this? No. There are times that I react. And I talked to Bob a lot about, especially at work, I seem to have, work and at home, the two places where I spend the most time, right, is when I seem to be more reactive than just to act. So I got a lot of work to do. But I have that now. Then it tells me, all right, now we're going to look at our own mistakes. Where had we been selfish, dishonest, self-seeking, and frightened? Now we're going to look at, right, our own mistakes. And so I start writing. And what I found out in the resentment portion of my first inventory was that like 99% of my resentments were based on other people's reactions to things I did first. I do something to you, you react, now it's your fault. Did anybody relate to that? Who set the ball rolling? Right? I don't come to work. I get suspended for my attendance. And I'm cursing Ford Motor Company. Just a simple example. Big chunks of truth. Big chunks of truth. Right? Had a lot of them. The first inventory that I wrote, Matthew, I was living in the back of my mom and dad's house. My mother was dying of cancer, man. And I'm sitting down, and man, dude, like, I had broken my mom and daddy's house and stole, I think, $4,000. It was my grandfather's money. My father had it. My grandfather was in the hospital dying. I waited till they went to the hospital during visiting hours, and I broke in their house, and I picked the lock on my dad. He had a strong box. And I picked that lock, and I took that money. And, my mother called. Nah, that's a lie. My mother got word to me. I ain't had no phone. My mother got word to me through my brother. We want to see you. So I got dropped off over there. I worked at Ford. I ain't had no car. Matthew, I had no car. You was up on me, dog. I ain't had no car. Totaled the last one drunk. That was my 7th conviction for driving under the influence of alcohol in the state of Ohio. And I go to my mother and father's house, and my mother, while I walked in the door, she only said one thing. She said, we want that money back. And of course, my response was, what money? Why is it every time something happens, y'all blaming me, right? My mother said every time something happened, we got a very short list of suspects. Can't you see how they wrong me? Dude, this is what I come in here with. Fear. No, I did a talk recently, and I talked about Pandora's box. Anybody familiar with that Greek mythology? I took Latin and Greek in college and high school. Now, I took it in high school because my mother made me. And I took it in college because I'm lazy and I don't want to learn anything new. I'm a minimalist, right? I should have been taking something, trying to learn all this money getting spent. I took that because I felt like it would not really require no effort because I took it in high school. That's how I was. And an idiom for Pandora's box is something that appears to be a present, but which in reality is a curse. When the book says a solitary appraisal is insufficient, a man said to me, I like real simple stuff. You know, you can't solve problems with the mind that created them. I need help. I need sponsorship. I need support. I need a home group. And of course, I need God's help. Fear, Pandora's box. And when Pandora's box opens, all of the things that have been talked about here this weekend begin to manifest themselves. Self-reliance, resentment, guilt, shame, remorse, envy, jealousy. Right? The box is open, man. Right? How do we keep the box closed? What do we do to minimize Pandora's box in our lives? And I'll tell you what, the answer lies in practical application of these steps in my life. That's how it's done. Listen, I am as susceptible to fear. I'm working on some now, some direction that I have from my sponsor about some. It is amazing to me how God has met my needs at every turn. Matthew just got done saying it. Every time in the moment, the need has always been met, right? When LeBron James was young and was playing basketball in Cleveland, he signed his contract with Nike. And they came into Cleveland and they put up this mural. They used to show it before games on TV. This giant mural next to the arena on this building covered the whole building. And it said, "We are witnesses." And it had the Nike swoosh. And here, we are witnesses. Our lives, the lives of our sponsees, the lives of our friends in here, we are witnesses. Yet, if something happens, I want to crack that box. I want to crack that box. And I want to do what Don said last night, is that I want to start operating in self-reliance, self-interest, self-will, because I don't believe that God will meet the need. Sounds almost like heresy in an AA meeting, doesn't it? We don't say things like that. We trust God, right? Scare me bad enough, Jack. And I will immediately start trying to control and manipulate everything and everybody around me to get whatever it is I think I need to get, because I don't trust God enough to give it to me. With all the indisputable evidence, welcome to life on life terms, welcome to life is in session. So what I'm getting here is another prayer. I've listed my fears. I asked myself why I had them. Listen, somebody said, "Do you write down?" I said, "No, because they answer that. They tell you why you have them, because self-reliance has failed you. That's why I have them." We ask God, second time, to remove our fears and shift redirect our thinking, right? We ask God to remove our fears and direct our thinking to what He would have us do. What He would have us be, right? This is about being. What would God have me be? God would have me be faithful. God would have me be trusting. God would have me be loving. God would have me be kind. God would have me be helpful. Did a little thing with one of my sponsees in Kentucky, and we was focusing on that in the morning. And he's a good guy. He starts writing down what was coming in his mind, and then he would take a picture of it, and then he would look at it during the day and see if he was being what God would have him. And I was like, man, you pretty deep, right? This is how cool this is, right? What would God have me be? Because from the being will flow the doing. From the being, if I trust God, if I'm faithful and trusting, believing and depending upon God, from that will flow the doing. I'm not worrying about me. I can actually start waking up and I can start seeing you. How can I be helpful? We ask God to remove our fear and direct our thinking to what He would have us be. So I start taking the action. My first sponsor told me, I'm going to train your feet to move against your head. I told him, I said, well, you got a heck of a job ahead of you, buddy. I said, because you don't know the head you're dealing with. And he trained my feet to move against my head. I don't care what I'm thinking. I know where the enemy lies. He used to say, anytime I'm in a room alone, all my enemies are there. So I need to be with y'all. I need to be with y'all. Sex inventory. Okay. Relationship inventory. Right. Okay. They give you some questions to answer in here. Where had we been selfish and dishonest, right? So the way I was directed to do this was to sit down, write a name, and then answer the questions. Write a name, answer the questions. And if anybody has done that, you know by the time you get to about the third one, if there are that many, honestly, right, you writing the same thing over and over again, right? So, the selfishness, the dishonesty, the fear, right, that comes about as a result of living this way and treating God's kids this way, right? Did I drink behind that? Did I drink behind the fear, the restlessness, the irritability, the discontent? You bet you believe I did. Alcohol was my answer. Like, I'm a person who drinks alcohol to feel better about problems caused by drinking alcohol. And so I live in this cycle. Anybody know what I'm talking about? I live in this cycle of chronic alcoholism, quite frankly. So I began to write these down. And now the founders start to give us some more. We ask God. We ask God to help us to mold a sane ideal. So what I've done when I've done this writing is I've looked at this is where I'm at. And this is one of the things about inventory, and somebody said it the other day, we write these inventory, but we don't live in it. But it is necessary for me to see where I was at so that I can have a new ideal. Okay? So I'm going to build that new ideal based on what? These mistakes from the past. So I've asked God to help me, and it says that the right answers will come, and here's the kicker, if I wanted it. If I want it. Do I want it? Or do I want to keep doing this? Because on the next page, there's a warning. And it tells me that if I make a mistake, right, and I'm sorry and I want to be forgiven and I clean it up, but if I continue in that behavior, we're quite sure to drink. It's not a theory. These are facts based on our experience. Gotta grant it. In each questionable situations, gotta answer if I want it. So am I showing up in relationships? Am I showing up in this area of my life the same way I was before I got here? Do I not trust God enough to include him in this area of my life? It says I'll drink if I continue to harm others. I cannot stay sober and continue to harm and damage God's kids. I've not seen it done. And I've seen and sponsored a lot of guys who absolutely refuse to address this. And I can tell you, they did not stay sober. I came up in a club, and there were a group of guys in that club who had been around AA for 10 years before I came. Yet, they were picking up 6-month chips. And there was a guy, his name was Ed, he sponsored a bunch of them. And I said to Ed one day after the morning meeting, I said, Ed, how come them guys never get beyond like 6 months, 9 months, right? And then they drink again. And he said, Kent, watch them after the meeting. So I watched them after the meeting. And most of these were married guys. And they gravitated right towards the new girls and right out the door. He said, a smart man learns from his own mistakes, but a wise man learns from the mistakes of others. He said, be aware of what's going on in here, right? If sex is very troublesome, we throw ourselves the harder into helping others, right? So we start to see. It's been discussed here. Billy talked about it, right? Don talked about it. Come in here and start giving. Come in here and start giving. Before I had anything going on with the steps, I was directed, okay, you can't carry the message to the alcoholic, but you can carry the alcoholic to the message, put them in your car and go. And I used to get 2 or 3 new guys from the club, and we'd go. Where I live at, there's, I got Toledo over here with 800 meetings. I got Akron down here. I got Cleveland over here. And every city in between, Elyria, Lorraine, Mansfield, Gale, thousands of AA meetings where I live. I was a traveling drunk. Right? I know where everything is at. Right? Hey, let's go to Mansfield. Right? Where's the meeting at? Right across the street from the Blue Note Lounge, right? Because I knew where to go, right? And we went everywhere, right? Take guys with you, meeting in the car on the way, meeting on the way back. This is what we did. Clean up down at the club. We had coffee cups down there. We had ashtrays that had to be washed down there. I tell the new people, listen, the day I come in here, I can start giving. If selfishness and self-centeredness is the root of the problem, then obviously unselfishness is the root of the solution. My life will change in direct proportion to when I start changing my actions and start giving. The steps are going to prepare me for something, right? But as soon as you come in here, I like how Matthew talked about the guy with 17 days telling the new guy, hey man, it gets better. I tell my new guys, hey, when somebody raised their hand and say they knew, And this is what Bill F. told me. Like a shark in the water, that's fresh blood. Go get him. Go get him. Right? And you watch these new guys. I'm in a men's group now, right? And we get a new guy come in there. Man, sometimes you got to go rescue them. These cats are whoof right after the meeting, right? And it's a beautiful thing. And they're all new, right? And that guy, Matthew's right. They want to talk to the guy who's close to where they are. They ain't coming to talk to me. Not off the rip, they ain't. I didn't want to talk to all them old guys. I had to. They made me, but I didn't want to. Right? I'm looking at the cat with I got 4 months. I'm looking at the cat with like 7 months, right? Who's going to meet, right? That's the guy I'm looking at, right? So as soon, I read something in one of my morning readings last week that said willingness will make clear opportunities. If I'm willing, I'm surrounded by need every time I walk out of the house. Only I'm so full of me half the time I don't see it. I am surrounded by need. I'm surrounded by need in AA. I'm surrounded by needs at work. I'm surrounded by need in my community. I am surrounded by need. Am I awake enough to see it? I got to get me out of the way first. I got to get me out of the way, and it starts here with this inventory. Now, there's going to be more to come. But it starts here. Am I awake, man? Am I awake? Or am I just, I like how Don laid it out. It's like I don't consciously do it, but things start getting good, right? And I just start pushing buttons, man. I just start pushing buttons. And I start relying on self again. And then when something happens, it's like I start flailing. Anybody know what I'm talking about? It's like, wait a minute. There are no flowery promises. That's why I had Larry read that last page on that last paragraph. Do you notice ain't no flowery promises after the fourth step? Right? There aren't. This is about digesting some big chunks of truth about myself. Active alcoholism is a manner of living which demands rigorous dishonesty. I lie to myself on a daily basis, on a minute-to-minute basis. Right? It's going to be different this time. It's not my fault. They don't like me. Right? The police have it in for me. I was downtown one night and somebody called the police. And when they arrived, I accused them of following me. And the cop started laughing, and he said, Kent, we don't have to follow you, man. Everywhere you go, somebody call us. But it's their fault. It's their fault, man. I'm persecuted. Right? So what I'm getting now is I'm getting some actions to take and putting pen to paper. And I don't know if anybody else in here thought this when you first came in AA, but I thought it would be nice. I don't really need to write all this down. I know all of it. I could tell it if I needed to, right? There's a therapeutic value that I cannot explain that happens when I put pen to paper. If I leave it in my head, somehow I got a way of somehow justifying it at some point or making it seem not as bad as, what it seems to be, right? It's just, but once I put pen to paper, I wrote it, I own it. I wrote it, I own it. So I have writing to do. I've been given prayers, and I've been given actions to take, all designed to shift my perspective, all designed to move me forward in my relationship with God by reducing self and increasing God's presence in my life in the moment that I'm in. Not an acute event, a way of life. I sat down in my mom and dad's family room, and I had one of those yellow, legal pads, and I had been given direction by my sponsor. And I wrote for about 6-8 hours, one day. What my sponsor told me was, okay, now I've given you direction, write your inventory. Here's when you're going to do your fifth step, right? So there wasn't no wiggle room. Wasn't, work on it as you can. And, no. I was told this is the day, right? And so he told me, before you write anything, and I'll share this with you. He said, before you write anything, right, you've made a decision to turn your will and your life over to the care of God in the third step. So, okay, God needs to be included in this. Get on your knees and ask God to reveal to you everything that needs to be in this inventory in order for you to move forward now. If anything is later, we got later steps that come up, we'll deal with them. But everything that needs to be on this paper now so that you can move forward in your recovery, ask God to move that pen and to get that on that paper. And I did. And when I got done writing it, I knew I was done. I didn't sit there thinking, well, now I need to take 2 weeks and see if I missed anything. No. When I finished it, I knew that I was done. And then I read it. And when I finished, my thought was, this ain't a human being. This is somebody who don't give a damn about nobody on this earth, And I thought to myself, I don't know how all this A stuff works, but I don't ever want to be this again. And I'm not. I ain't perfect. You want to really know the truth about me? Ask her. Ask her. I take inventory every day. Some days much better than others. Spiritual progress, yes. We claim spiritual progress rather than spiritual perfection. Do you ever notice sometimes I'll be at meetings and they say, we claim progress, not perfection, and leave the spiritual out? You ever notice that? When I put the spiritual in there, it changes the entire meaning of it. Am I growing in my relationship with God? Remind the prospect that his recovery is not dependent upon people. It is dependent upon his relationship with God. What I'm doing is taking actions to awaken my spirit. And somebody said it is going to expel the obsession to drink alcohol, and it allows the sufferer, as Wilson said, to live a happily whole and useful life. And I'm really enjoying my life. I'll tell you, sponsorship is an unbelievable gift. To watch, I got some sponsees right now that are really, 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 really going through some stuff. 3 of them. And I get to walk with them. And I get to see up front, up close and personal, God's hand in their lives. Step 4 is the beginning of a lifelong process. And it is the beginning of a process that, like in the beginning, seems, well, I guess I got to do it, right? But it's something that has become exciting to me. I want to be, I said when I got a sponsor, that I want to max out in here. I want to be the best person that I can be. I want to try to live the life God put me here to live. And I know what that life is today, and that life is to love and to serve you. And that's the only reason I'm here. I'm not here to accumulate money. I'm not here to accumulate things. I'm not here to accumulate pats on the backs. And I'm here to try to serve God and love people. And if I do that, when you go to a funeral, have you ever heard a bank statement read at a funeral? How you living? I had an uncle, my Uncle Amos, who was the finest human being I've ever known. He was a deacon. But if you went anywhere in the city of Sandusky, I don't care if it was black, white, Hispanic, whatever, if there was a family, if there was death, if there was you go by there, you walk up in there, there be Uncle Amos. I'm like, how did he know everybody? How does he know everyone? You know, he just loved God. He loved people. And when he died, y'all see how many people in here? It was twice as many people as this at his funeral. And it was on a Wednesday in the middle of the week at 1:00 in a driving rainstorm. And when the preacher got up, he said, this is what it looked like when a servant go home. See, I want to be a servant. I want to be a servant. Bob said, this is the only place you come in a big shot and work your way up to servant. And for me, that is the journey. And step 4, right, is giving me not only actions to take, but a spiritual shift in perspective from dishonesty to truth that I need to carry with me on a daily basis. I'm grateful to have been here. Thank you for listening. God bless.